Takes about 40 minutes to drive from the Rome airport into the heart of town. If you're traveling on your own, you can easily find a taxi at the Rome airport, and it'll take you into the city for about $50 for the ride. And it's a pleasant ride. You pass by historic monuments pretty quickly. The Pyramid of Caius Cestius, it was built around 12 BC in honor of ordinary noblemen. This was the age of Augustus, the age of grandeur, and the age of the Colosseum, built in the 1st century AD. We'll be visiting inside the Colosseum later in the program. The most magnificent monument from classical antiquity. And the Roman Forum is right next to the Colosseum, featuring here a great temple built by Hadrian. We're on our way to the hotel. We're staying at the San Giorgio, which is located just near the Termini train station. Very convenient location while you're in Rome, particularly when you're beginning a major train tour, as our Hawaii Geographic group is doing. So right away we get our orientation of the city by descending into not the catacombs but the subway, the modern subway of Rome. There's only 2 lines on the Rome subway, so it's not very extensive, but it is quite handy for getting you around the city. It'll take you from the Termini train station to the heart of the Spanish Steps area in just about 10 minutes as we arrive in the Piazza di Spagna for our first glimpse of this wonderful ancient city. Right to the Trevi Fountain. Once you've thrown your coins in the Trevi Fountain, then you're sure to come back to Rome. You throw 2 coins in, one for a general wish and one to make sure that you return to the city. Trevi Fountain was constructed about 200 years ago in a very grand Baroque style. It commemorates one of the great aqueducts of the city, the Aqua Virgin. Nearly 2,000 years old and still in use today. The Aqua Virgin supplies water for the central historic part of the city. You'll notice many water fountains like this one scattered throughout town, and it might seem a bit of a mystery at first. Here's how you get it to work. You put your finger over the end, and the water shoots out a little hole on the top. Of course, it's safe to drink tap water throughout Western Europe, in your hotel room, or even on these public street fountains as we find here in Rome. And it's very refreshing because Rome can be a little hot and dusty sometimes, and you really would like to have just a simple drink of water, maybe not a soda or coffee or beer, but just some water, and it's all around you on these little street corner fountains. One of the most spectacular churches that we visit in Rome is not a large church. It's more of a neighborhood church. It's called San Ignazio. Has the most splendid trompe-l'oeil ceiling anywhere in the world. An incredible illusion is painted on the ceiling of angels and saints and clouds and architecture and arches, and then the church also has abundant sculptures and lapis lazuli columns on the altars and an incredibly elaborate Baroque interior. San Ignazio is a Jesuit church located in the historic center, and it was a church that was intended to educate and elucidate and entertain the masses. Theatrical is the word that can describe San Ignazio, a place that the public would like to come and visit, like to come back again and again to see, and listen to the priests while they're there, and perhaps be converted or reaffirmed in their faith. The Jesuits were a great missionary order. They sent their priests out to the 4 corners of the planet, and they were headquartered right here in Rome. That's St. Ignatius painted on the ceiling in his apotheosis, being transformed into a saint and transported to heaven. Magnificent church. It's not the headquarters of the Jesuit order, however. That honor goes to a nearby church called Il Gesù that we'll be visiting shortly. But be certain to go visit San Ignazio and take note of the illusionistic dome. Even the dome is painted in this church. They didn't quite have enough money to construct a large dome, so they painted one. A very spectacular first impression of the churches of Rome. And just outside the church is a charming and characteristic piazza, the Piazza San Ignazio. The Baroque arrangement of buildings looks like a little theater setting. You'll find many opportunities for horse-drawn carriages in the city. You can also rent bicycles if you're particularly bold and daring, perhaps on a Sunday when there's less traffic. But you will find in the historic center there's very little automobile traffic. There's some taxis and delivery cars and workers and residents, but otherwise it's an automobile restricted zone, which makes it great fun for the pedestrian. Very easy to walk around if you know where these little side streets are. And they soon lead us to the most perfectly preserved building from Roman antiquity, the Pantheon. This has been described as the most perfect building ever constructed. And miraculously, it's still standing nearly 2,000 years later. Constructed in the middle of the 2nd century by the Emperor Hadrian, it's a fine classical monument with its original roof still intact. The dome of the Pantheon was the largest dome in the world for nearly 2,000 years until this century. And out front of the Pantheon is a very pleasant piazza, the Piazza della Rotonda, with its Egyptian obelisk and interesting whimsical fountains and pigeons and many cafes around the Piazza della Rotonda. Famous coffee shops and ice cream shops here, and you can certainly have a nice lunch or dinner. The prices would be typical, nothing extravagant. The price of a meal in Rome is about like it is in Honolulu at a decent restaurant. Perhaps $10 to $20 for a lunch. Dinner could run you from $15 to $30, depending on what you eat. Marvelous fountain right in front of the classical facade of the Pantheon. Looks like a Greek temple on the outside with its triangular pediment. It was originally covered in white marble on the exterior and gold and bronze in the interior. And there used to be statues attached to the pediment and to the facade of the Pantheon. They've been removed and stripped, but it's amazing the building itself still stands. Continue walking on these quiet streets towards the Piazza Navona. We stop off at the most famous ice cream store in Italy, Giolitti's. This place has got to be tasted to be believed. Italian gelato is arguably the best ice cream to be found any place in the world. And it's served at a wonderful temperature. You have a variety of 32 different kinds of flavors, scooped fresh out of the bin. So we line up, and it costs anywhere from $2 to $4 for a cone, depending on how many scoops you get. And you can mix and match your flavors in there. Clerks will skillfully dish it out to you. They're open from mid-morning until late in the evening. And it's a little tricky to find it in these narrow, twisted back streets of the city, but it's basically between the Pantheon and the National Congress Building. You can find it by just following the trail of satisfied ice cream eaters. Look for the ice cream cones and ask them, where'd you get there? Where's Giolitti? Dove Giolitti? And they'll point your way to it. It's well worth the search. Famous landmark. You can also have a meal here, but they're mostly noted for their gelatos. They also have sorbet, more of a light ice. You can have sundaes. But just a simple cone will set you straight and give you a nice break from your walk and recharge you with energy. Get you ready for some more walking. Ice cream in America just doesn't compare in flavor, texture, variety, and temperature. There's no comparison to Giolitti's in Rome. Certainly there's other gelato stores throughout the city, and nearly all of them have fine ice cream. So if you're passing one and you're hungry, don't wait until you find Giolitti's. Just go for it, whatever, at the neighborhood corner ice cream store. You'll be very happy. The Romans are a passionate people. You'll see them standing, talking face to face, walking arm in arm. Just a very friendly, warm, and emotional people. We're continuing our orientation walk now, heading to the neighborhood of the Via Condotti and Via Fratina, some of the very nice shopping streets near the Piazza di Spagna, the Spanish Steps. We always include these orientation walks on our Hawaii Geographic tours. Give you a chance to sit down at a sidewalk cafe, have a drink, have a lunch, watch the people. People watching, shopping, historical monuments. These are some of the great highlights of our trips through Europe. And we take our time. We spend 3 nights in Rome on the tour. Now we've made it to the fanciest, most expensive shopping street in the country, the Via Condotti, which leads right to the Spanish Steps. And from here we get back on the subway. There's a convenient subway station, the Spagna station, and you put your ticket in the machine and pull it out. That validates the ticket and opens the turnstile for you. 1 person at a time, please. Check the station list to make sure we're getting on the proper platform. Yep, there it is, Termini. 4 stops from Barberini, Repubblica to Termini, and here comes our subway train. For many of our Hawaii travelers, this is the first subway ride they've ever been on. Certainly their first subway in Rome. And it's a pretty decent train. It doesn't get too crowded during the daytime. So this is the end of our first day of the tour. The rest of the afternoon and evening is at leisure to rest up and maybe take a little stroll on your own.